Heyo everybody, so this is like a side-by-side collaboration type deal that I'm doing with Katie, the Angel Witch. So my video is focusing mainly on the mechanical interplay between, say, like the QTEs and how they kind of influence like the story and what that meant to me personally and my experiences with the game. And her video is more about like the story more directly. Not that I don't talk about the story or address it at all, but it's more like it just didn't hit me as much as it hit for her. So she talks more directly about like the Buddhist and Hinduist like imagery type stuff. So definitely go and check that one out. The link to that will be in the description. And then also just want to give a general spoiler warning because this is just a shorter video. So yeah, I'm going to spoil all of Asura's Wrath, or at least, you know, there's going to be spoilers in the video. I'm going to spoil especially part 4 Nirvana. So, you know, if you want to play Asura's Wrath, then, you know, you should do it. It's a good game. CyberConnect 2 is a dev that has piqued my particular interests for a long time. Really, ever since .hack graced my eyes, I've been somewhat interested in them as a multimedia creator. I never played those games as they came out though. I only got around to watching a little bit of the anime sometime in high school, but I knew the basic premise and what it was going for far before then. The ads specifically are still genuinely captivating even to this day.
When does fantasy begin? When does reality end? .hack. Is it just a game, or something far more dangerous? .hack Part 1, game and DVD for PlayStation 2 from Bandai, rated T for teen.
Even then, once I found ways to play and experience the entire series, I just still haven't gotten around to going through them all yet. I really want to though, and videos on those, yes, including the anime and manga, will come at some point. They're on the list. It's something about the vibes of those games though, the aesthetics, the aspirations and commitment to this world and building it really pulled me in and fascinated me in what they could do with it all. I found out about the Little Bronx titles, which then proceeded to grab my attention as well in early high school, even though I also didn't play them. Solatorobo specifically always piqued my interest. I'm totally not a furry, what are you talking about? Then while looking a bit more into them for this video, I found out about Silent Bomber.
7 years ago, on a battlefield, I lost what I believed in. Each time I went into battle, another piece of my soul died. I'm the mere shell of a man now. Nothing more than a killing machine.
Utah? Come in, Utah! There's a target in your immediate proximity! It has a marker on it, so assault teams, destroy all enemy anti-aircraft weaponry! But that's impossible! There are still targets remaining! Destroy every one of them!
So we're merely pawns in some elaborate game that will determine the fate of the world, is that it? Then which player is going to be fortunate enough to checkmate fate, I wonder?
Silent Bomber is a game they made in the late 90s that rules! Silent Bomber is an arcadey bomb-em-up about a guy who only knows orders, learning to rely on others, and learning that love is actually pretty based. Also, Spec Ops: The Line could never.
What's this place?
It's an enemy stronghold. Burn down the entire installation.
Roger! Those are... But I thought there were soldiers in here! These people are civilians!
Calm down, Utah. Burn everything to the ground.
But...
That's an order.
Understood, sir.
In the tutorial? God damn! I mainly played through this to see if the same adherence to cinematic tropey bombastic storytelling carried through even back then, and yes it does. The rival fight here is fucked up though. You have to do an entire chessboard fight and beat the final boss that has your moveset in one go? Nah, I gave up and just played Rumble Roses instead. Let's go, Dixie! But in relation to their anime-like game-making reputation, I had fully realized they were the ones behind the Naruto Ultimate Ninja series that I played a lot as a kid. See, I used to be super into Naruto. I watched every episode on Toonami, kept up week to week. I adored everything about it. I used to be into quite a lot of Battle Shonen anime too, actually. But after the Sasuke retrieval arc and entering high school, I kind of began to sour on this genre that I genuinely used to adore. My perception of anime became a mixture of the big three at the time, Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, and a bunch of other battle shonen shows that just weren't really holding my attention anymore. Zatch Bell's sticking out real particularly right now. Where my Zatch heads at? After a while, I asked myself, is this it? Is this all anime has to offer? Due to being 13 and very reductive and stupid, I just didn't really get or vibe with any of it anymore, and so I stopped watching a lot of anime altogether because my ideas of what the medium were so limited by what my peers and friends at that time were engaging in, and not what I actually had much interest in any longer. I also don't think I was actually taking in what a lot of these stories were doing as well. I'm sure if I watched something like Jujutsu Kaisen at the time, I would have probably been extremely dismissive of it. Eventually, I got back into anime as a whole on my own, long after my peers had disengaged with it at the time. I realized the medium wasn't that condensed, and like film, which I had majorly gotten into around that time, anime composed of a variety of vibes, genres, and moods all around. I'd found Hosoda films, branched into shit that spoke to me more at that time, Ghost in the Shell and its melancholy transhumanism, Kino no Tabi and its world-traveling philosophical musings, Aku no Hana and its pressurized anger about small-town life. Anime as a whole connected with me again. But during that gap of literal years before I had gotten majorly back into anime on a much broader scale, I now realize I deprived myself and missed out on some wonderfully amazing works at the time, especially within the battle shonen genre that I used to dismiss. While I, at the time, was still into Japanese games, Kingdom Hearts has and will always own me, Aqua, my beloved, and kept up with many a company, I ignored anything that reminded me of my connection to the shonen works I grew up with. This is where Asura's Wrath fell into. I remember seeing a trailer for it online and it always piquing my interest, but being far too prideful to get it because it looked far too much like the anime I grew up with and that I was distancing myself from at that time. Big buff, angry guy punching another big buff angry man. I had played the demo and thought it was cool, but I just didn't bother to try to get it. I was too busy with games like Skyrim, Far Cry 3, and Modern Warfare 2 with my friends. I had pretty normie tier taste when I was like 13, because in reality most kids do as they're learning about, growing up with, and exploring different mediums, and finding what fully does and doesn't click with them. I'm sorry gamers, my palette was actually decently boring, even if I knew about a lot of games that my friends didn't or some shit. I still mainly played a lot of stuff that other kids did to fit in and because I enjoyed them. But unfortunately, due to this and the entire controversy with the true ending of the game being locked behind DLC, and my broke 15-year-old high school ass not having money, I passed on it in lieu of other games and franchises that I was into more at the time. But it always stuck around. Over the years, I heard reappraisal after reappraisal of the game, eventually catching my attention as my memories of passing it by would come up every time it would be brought up to me. As I got back into anime sometime in 2013, literally a year after this game had come and gone, and am now now at this point just a full-blown weeb again. I absolutely wanted to dip into this game after all these years of just wondering about it. I wondered and worried if maybe I wouldn't be super into it at this point though. While I have been vibing with more works like this again and reconnecting with some old favorites, Yu Yu Hakusho do be ballin', I still don't adore these kinds of battle shonen-y works all that much. Something about the way a number of stories like this tend to be put together doesn't really pull me in as much as it did when I was a kid. Now it just kind of, unfortunately, leaves me pretty cold. But despite that hesitation, I decided to dip my toes in and see how it went. Something of a way to understand what about the shonen I've been dipping into has been appealing to me recently, and why I distanced from certain ones over others. I wanted this to be a nice short break in between the longer videos that I've been working on. So anyway, I went on to finish this game twice. Also, for cutscenes throughout this, I'm going to be using the Japanese voices because, hot take? Maybe? But I don't think the dub is all that good for this game. Maybe this doesn't matter to bring up because I don't always go into voice work in these videos, but I think some here nail it, like Liam O'Brien as Asura.
Knock that mask off!
Or Robin Atkin Downs as Yasha.
This is not the cause I supported.
But some others for me just do not fit their characters at all, or deliver some kind of sloppy or strangely stiff performances that really just don't complement the vibes at all here for me. At any point August was on screen, I just felt like something was missing from the performance that the Japanese voices could be potentially providing me better.
You fight, then eat good food. You fight, then drink fine wine. You fight, then sleep with beautiful women. Hell, fight with beautiful women. That is what it means to live.
And after switching to the JP voices for the second playthrough, I was absolutely correct.
戦いて美味を食らい、戦いて美酒を煽り、戦いて美気を抱き、戦いて桃源の湯に遊ぶ。これが生きるということよ。
Maybe this is a weirdly harsh criticism because, trust me, this isn't to ignite some dumb sub versus dub argument or anything like that. Trust me, I do not care what anyone else does, and I generally tend to stick with dubs for games, but in this case, enough felt off with it that I just couldn't ignore it personally, and I thought that was important to bring up. Can't get this game out of my fucking mind. Even taking a break and playing Ridge Racer Type 4 in all of its dreamlike excellence couldn't get this game and the experience of it out of my head. Ever since beating it, something about it has just stuck with me, cemented itself deeply within a narrow spot of my tastes that just works oh so well. I can't even cover this the way I normally do because I have so little to say on what I normally would cover. The story is fine, but overall doesn't blow me away or fill me with any deep intrigue about it. It's a revenge tale that you've absolutely seen at this point more than likely and done far better. Your Lady Snowbloods, your Sympathy for Mr. Vengeances, your Kill Bill. I'm so sorry, I don't know how that footage got in there again. That's my bad. It's a bombastic anime tale about the maddest dad in the universe trying to figure out why he's so fucking mad and punching everyone he can to see if he's any closer to figuring it out, and also saving his daughter and avenging his wife. The characters generally are fairly flat and not all that fleshed out, though I do dig Yasha's deal and his cowardice for the fascist cause of the first main antagonist, Deus, and even going as far as to letting them kill his own sister.
これは失言だったかな。そういえば貴公にはまだ話していなかったね。12000年前、そう彼アスラが反逆者として処理された時、我はどこにいたと思う？そうだね。 ミスラ様を保護したのが一体誰かここまで言えばわかるよねそうだヒコーラの大事な女を殺したのは我だ つまらないね。もっといい顔が見られると思ったのに。
元より知っていた。
そうかい。実の妹の死より大義か。なるほど。さすがデウスも惚れ込む一番の中堅。大義真を滅す美しきかなヤシャ。
Asura himself grew on me a bit as it all went on, too. I grew attached to his struggles and his triumphs, and I wanted to help him get there by the end, but I can't honestly say that I really cared about most of what was going on in the main story outside of that. I just kind of felt like I'd personally done this whole song and dance before with other characters, other games, films, anime, and so on. For me, it wasn't doing a lot in its core narrative to set it apart. Not that I even needed it to do anything new in particular or anything, but what was there didn't really grab me in ways other stories really had. Though I will say, I do find it funny that this was right before the whole sad dad trend really took off in games. Yes, I know God of War existed already, shut up. I love the rival dynamic between Yasha and Asura a lot. They're just massive dickheads to each other pretty much all the way until the end, which is pretty wonderful.
Yasha! どけ! 何をしている? 貴様には関係のないこと。なんだと? 貴様の相手をしている暇はない。
They're just so petty. I just wish I cared more about this fairly trope-laden story, dead wife, kidnapped daughter, and all. The main combat also isn't anything to really write home about either. It's serviceable and does its job alright, but it tends to serve more as a bridge to the scenes themselves, which is way more the core of the actual experience. Very much reminded me of aspects of Ranko Tsukigime's Longest Day, though not as genre-bendy or interesting gameplay-wise as that very cool game that we will talk about at some point was. The combat itself, playing like Ultimate Ninja Storm arena fighting, only your goal is to build up the burst meter there to make something rad happen, instead of depleting a health bar or something. Also, this game is overall great, whereas that game fucking sucks. Holy shit, what is this mission structure? Ah! Ultimate Ninja 2, the GOAT. Sasuke gets 4 Chidoris, and no one stops him! This game is more so encouraging you to get to the next scene over actually dealing with the combat in full. The camera in these sections can be a pain in the ass with group fights, and they just don't feel good at all. Crowd control just tended to feel like a massive pain in the ass the entire time. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm an action game master or anything, I suck shit at DMC3, but I can absolutely admit when I suck ass at a game, and this just ain't the case here. Some bosses have weird tells and damage states I found too. Not unmanageable or anything like that, but just not all that fun to deal with sometimes, as I felt like I couldn't get a good read on some attacks. So you may be wondering, well, if you think the combat is just fine and the story generally is just fine to you, then why has this rocketed up into being one of your favorite games ever made? Why is this on your Samcore list on Backloggd.com, huh? You little gamer, huh? Well, dear viewer, it's because of what the game is most famous for, the way it uses those QTEs in conjunction with its story. QTEs in games around this time were not very well adored. I remember conversations I'd have with people about QTEs being shoved into everything around that time. Basic actions had become tied to you mashing a button, or making cutscenes more interactive or something. You'd be playing Spider-Man 3 on your PS Triple.
I'm talking about that PS Triple. The PS Triple. I ain't talking about that Wii.
And all of a sudden... So many people hated them, and I absolutely thought that they were, in a way, overused to shit. But I also felt like they tended to get a lot of unnecessary shit too. There are really good examples of it working, like with Metal Gear Rising, and its frantic and constant use of them with the flow of combat, and the big spectacle of the fights on display utilizing them so perfectly. Though admittedly, there are also doofy, dire-ass examples like mashing circle to emotionally distance from your daughter in God of War Chains of Olympus or whatever that game is called. But But then you also have reaction commands in Kingdom Hearts 2 that are sick as fuck to pull off and just made a part of the combat. It's the type of thing that has loads of potential to be used in diverse and interesting ways. Well, Asura's Wrath absolutely fucking does. If there were a very specific way to put it, I'd say that this is damn near genre defining in the cinematic QTE game genre as a whole. See, everything you do in the game contributes in some way to a big action. The game from the beginning demands your attention, as a QTE can happen at basically any moment. Anytime Asura is doing something big and bombastic, you are still in control with your button presses when the game demands that of you. You feel the weight of every single attack and strike and movement Asura does. You can rationalize that it's not you, but you feel like you have to fight with Asura. When Asura does a punch that obliterates his fucking arms into dust, you too are probably feeling the strain of mashing that circle button over and over again to help him fight. You're right there with him. The game does its best to match those feelings with the fairly simplistic actions that you're doing. The game rewards how successfully you hit every single QTE as being in sync with who you're controlling. Every success both felt and sounded impactful. The wonderful animation work is amazingly done. The stretchy elasticity of a fight as we see them in a number of fight manga and anime. The game knows its creative ambitions and inspirations, and it effortlessly recreates those same vibes. As the game continued on, I realized I wasn't respecting it necessarily as an action game, but far more for the grand bombastic ambition of this experience as a whole. Hell, initially I wasn't really vibing with it at all, but as time went on, I grew to understand and adore what it was going for. There was a point where I would look at it as less of a character action game like a lot of people describe it as. It just doesn't stack up well enough to those to even begin competing, and far more as an evolution to games like Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, and Time Gal, though far more forgiving than all of those, cause like, holy shit, arcade cinematic game design, ah! The game commands you to hit specific buttons in order to move things along and keep the scene moving all the same. Each stage even rating you on how perfectly you've done this, reminding me of the precision and controlling the movie feel that again games like Time Gal gave me, though this tying you more to it with the absolute intensity of some of the QTEs and how they're used to effectively tie you to Asura's emotions as well. Like, it's genuinely very telling that the chapters that don't really flow as well are the ones that more than anything directly mimic a Dragon's Lair or Time Gal, with the playable anime cutscene extra DLC chapters that fill in a couple gaps in the story that aren't really all that necessary to see. The game's animation work, the perfect capturing of a certain style and vibe, it's kinda lost in these transitions back to 2D animation that looks good, but seriously doesn't fit the lively bombast of the game as a whole. In a way, it kinda proves to me why Asura's Wrath itself wouldn't really work as a show directly. If it's too disconnected from the player and their actions, it just doesn't hit as strongly at all. It's not nearly as compelling at all to me personally. Asura's Wrath works because it's a video game, and that is fucking awesome. Maybe that's a bit harsh on the game's story. I know people who got a lot more out of this story than I did, but for me this game clicks on such a mechanical and emotional level outside of the actual story it is telling that I feel compelled to talk about it more in this way. The way the music mixes with it all here too is so perfect. Composed by Chikayo Fukuda, composer of games such as Solatorobo Silent Bomber, This is a score that perfectly complements every scene in its grand scope. Furueru Kokoro setting up those perfect space operatic vibes, perfectly setting up a lot of the tragedy yet to happen and being a perfect song for this beginning section. Broad-minded, reminding me a bit of Shadow Heart's Covenant's OST a bit actually. Just this somewhat triumphant but anxious battle song using those bells and that sick shredding guitar, fucking slapper. Even the perfect use of Symphony No. 9 from the New World to sell the bombastic sense of scale from this big, dumb anime moon fight, it just fucking owns. The whole OST has a perfect mix of intense yet gentle, commanding yet soft. It hits this perfect middle that communicates those vibes it's going for overall oh so perfectly. Even if some of the tracks end up blending together or not sticking out as well as I wish it would, in the end, tracks like One Who Spins Samsara drives home what this is overall doing and going for so effectively, taking the motif of the main theme and using it to underscore the threat of this fight against this unknowable god. It's a banger. It genuinely impresses me how they go about not only making what they themselves called interactive anime, but also for making it feel like a battle shonen as well. It plays up all of the fight tropes and everything, but it puts you in control of them. They do that thing that some battle shonen stuff, or honestly even just stories in general do, where the villains will monologue incessantly at you, boasting and bragging about how fucking smart they are, and you can just completely interrupt them. The game encourages you to interrupt them. You get in-game trophies for doing it. It ties your reactions and desires to the gameplay. All the reasons in the world can't change the fact that they have Asura's daughter, and you gotta punch their asses. Their boasting, shit-talking, and whatnot has nothing to do with you and your goals, so fuck them. It wants you to stop thinking, to seat yourself more and more within Asura's anger, to hit that fucking circle button and shut these bastards up, because that's exactly what the fuck he would do in these situations. He doesn't care about any of this shit. He doesn't care about their plan or what they want to do or why. He fights because he wants to, and he fights because he has to. He wants revenge in its purest form, and he could give a shit about any reason outside of his own. In that way, Asura himself ended up growing on me as a character. I felt like I was fighting with him in those QTEs, like even though I didn't really care about the overall gist of the story, nor the whys, I realized that neither did Asura himself. All he cared about was getting through it all, and in that sense, so did I. I cared about getting him there despite the full reason or purpose of it all. I haven't felt that purely connected in spirit to a character before, honestly. Never had a game really hooked my actions as a player that deeply to a character's motivations like that. I have to talk about Nirvana. Like, holy fuck. It sucks that this final true ending is locked behind DLC. Genuinely, that shit is criminal, and Capcom should be ashamed for ever letting that happen. But even with that in mind, this part is what made me fall in love with this game. What made everything fucking click perfectly into place, especially. Like, I was more on board around the moon fight and playing as Yasha, but this fight is fucking perfect. The way this section in general uses QTEs is nothing short of masterpiece work. To highlight this, I'm gonna focus on 3 specific moments. First, the final rival fight with Yasha. It's absolutely fucking perfect, like the type of prove yourself for the ability to maybe fly back off and defeat God type beat. The I'm dying, but you must stop the evil characters, so you gotta prove yourself to me type shonen beat. The fight is fairly intense, flashing back to when they were training under their masters especially, flowing between past and present. Yasha has done a lot of fucked up things, letting his own sister die for the cause he believed in so much, his complicity in letting these gods essentially harvest humans for their own goals. This is the only way his story could end after all of the suffering he's been a part of and caused, reminding me of the actually solid line between him and Asura's daughter, feeling completely ashamed of being known as her uncle for what he chose to do.
Oji-sama. Misra-sama. 私にはおじさまなどと呼ばれる資格はありません。もういいんです。Misra-sama.
All of that comes to a head in this fight, and then it all comes down to this last punch, these last single hits being thrown. As the final rival type blow is thrown and Yasha misses his, the triangle button slowly fades into view, which then you realize the scene isn't over. Are you going to choose to punch him here, hitting triangle far before you should? You want accuracy with Asura, right? You can't go jumping the gun, so you let it cook, you let it move, you wait for the fist to connect so you can get that hit. It allows you to think about if this punch is even worth it. There's so much weight behind this one punch. But Asura actually stops himself and thus prevents you too from the wrath that you potentially are both feeling. You settle because even with all that Yasha has done, he's not really the enemy here. The final rival punch, trading blows type deal has been a trope in these kinds of stories for the longest fucking time.
Damn you! Take this, bitch!
So to see this game take that and incorporate it into the scene itself, making it mechanically a thing that you as the player are setting yourself inside of, it's fucking iconic. It's such a goddamn strong moment. The second is when you go up to meet CHAKRAVARTIN. After shooting down literally suns and galaxies and planets, because this game is fucking nuts, you end up getting to CHAKRAVARTIN. They offer you a position to rule the world, to basically become the god deity protector, or dictator more like, of the world, somewhat like what Deus was doing, or trying to do. God offers you their hand in this proposition, your daughter safely by your side, your powers maintained. Are you going to extend your hand, Asura? After everything we've been through here, I expected nothing else. This is the only way things could end. This god has done too much to just get off the hook after all these so-called trials. Too much loss and suffering for a world they clearly didn't care for. Conflict for the sake of it all. Hurt and suffering for the sake of it all. The monsters you fight, they could have even taken care of at any point, but both made them and just chose not to. My favorite use of the interrupt mechanical idea. My favorite instance of starting a fight with a god in a video game. The last, but very much not least, during the fight with CHAKRAVARTIN's truest form. This unknowable, hard-to-comprehend Zawarudo-type creature. You enter some QTE sequences, and then you enter the final one, the one to end it all. Other commands start popping up, and for whatever reason, they look just like yours, but in a language you can't know or understand. Holy scripture where a button should be. CHAKRAVARTIN is doing QTEs against you. The game itself is fighting you. The developers are fighting you directly. It feels like more than just fighting a character in a game. You yourself are reaching outside of the game itself. The fourth wall of play completely shattered if it was ever even fully there to begin with. The game is trying to stop you from finishing this, from granting Asura's daughter a world where she doesn't have to suffer. Are you gonna let that happen? You must overwhelm. You must overcome. You must help the game feel both of your rads. There's just simply nothing like it. I've never seen games use QTEs like this. Not in this kind of way. Not in this way that actively ties the player far more deeply to the experience and pure raw emotions of the main character involved. Legit, if you know of any other games that go as hard as this, please sound off in the comments about it. I genuinely want to play them. This hits on such a wonderfully unique level for me. Genuinely, when the game QTE'd against me, I was flabbergasted. My mouth was agape. I was losing my shit. Part 4 brought this game up from just a good and fun experience emulating the tropes of shonen anime to truly getting it and cementing itself as its own wonderfully unique take as a shonen anime video game all in itself. It stands apart. Just as Asura learned of what his wrath represented, I came to understand what exactly I like to look for in battle shonen works too, which feels silly to say out loud, but hey, it's the rawness of its emotions, the weight of each fight and battle, the meaning of why exactly they're fighting and who exactly for. I don't watch Jujutsu Kaisen only for the sick-ass fights. If I did, I'd like Zero way more than I did. I watch it because of what the fights mean to the characters involved, the stakes, the emotions, the fucking bombast. I watch Hunter x Hunter to see these characters' struggles, their lives, what they're fighting for, what they have to lose, to see that beautiful heartfelt introspection in a cold world that doesn't particularly care about them or for them. This may sound generic, I honestly don't know because maybe you can sum up any story like this, but something about watching the crunchy QTE-laden emotional fights in this game made it all click. Pure space operatic punchy man bombast filled with raw and crunchy emotion. While the story itself overall doesn't hit all that hard for me, it hits in mechanically connecting you to Asura's struggle and pure raw emotions directly. By tying you mechanically to his mindset, even if you don't care about the story, Asura doesn't really fully either and encourages you to punch first and ask your questions later, to find why exactly you're so angry, to find what is holding you to this world over moving on and playing something else, to find Asura's wrath. All right, so I want to start by just, like always, just saying thank you to all of my patrons. And I want to give name shout outs to the 2 people in our $10 Raddest Magic List person tier. And those 2 people are Ginger and Scared Confusion. Thank you both. And again, thank you to all of my patrons who are supporting the channel and supporting my dream here of just growing things and just me making stuff here. So seriously, thank all of you. You're all appreciated very, very, very much. I hope y'all dug the video. This was like, I like to say that it's shorter than normal, but it still ended up like about 40 minutes. And I just think that's really funny when that happens, because like in my head, like I even say it in the video, like I was like, oh, I intended this to be like short, and it never happens. I can say I'm making a short video and then it'll be like an hour and a half, and all my friends are always like, Sam, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Like, that's short for you? And I'm like, yeah, I just kind of made like a 2.5 hour feature film on Shadow Hearts Covenant. So, but yeah, I hope y'all liked it. I was really excited to talk about this. This game like genuinely really surprised me, so I was happy that I was able to stick with it. I also want to thank Katie the Angel Witch for like doing this kind of co-video collab with me. Like I said, her video on Asura's Wrath is in the description of the video, and I please recommend that you all, go there, check it out, give it a shot. You will not be disappointed. Katie makes some great stuff. Now for the little, I don't know, I like to put these in here. I've been watching a lot of stuff, and I watch a lot of stuff while I'm editing. So like while I'm editing, I'll watch like a TV show. While I was editing this time, I watched Tulsa King, that new Sylvester Stallone mob show, which was solid. I think it has some underdeveloped characters, some of the side characters. The villain or the antagonist of the season is weirdly underutilized in a way. He reminds me of kind of like the limp, weak-ass way that Millions Knives is treated in the original Trigun anime that honestly I think is like kind of okay, I guess. A lot of people love that show. I think it's, I don't know. I really need to read the manga though, and Stampede rules. Just want to put that out there. And then I've also been watching Under the Banner of Heaven, which is that Andrew Garfield like true crime investigating that like Mormon church or those 80s Mormon killings, and it's pretty good. Andrew Garfield gives an amazing performance in it. Sam Worthington is fucking killing it in that show. Episode 6 with him is like fucking, it's so goddamn good. It's like it's a really engaging mystery. It's a really engaging just story in general. I like the way that they're kind of interweaving, like even though Andrew Garfield's character isn't like based on a real person and like is made up for the show's context, I like how they use it to kind of talk and describe how like the kind of alienation that like people who are questioning their faith in organized religions like this and in like cult ass situations like this just feel, and it's well executed. So I definitely recommend it. If you want to read some stuff about that I wrote on Letterboxd, you can check out my Letterboxd in the description. I've also been playing, like I said in the video, Ridge Racer Type 4. That game fucks. It's really cool. Go play it. Shit controls like a dream. Also wrote about that on my Backloggd page, which again is linked in the description. So anyway, I've rambled long enough. I want to thank you all again, and I seriously appreciate everybody leaving likes and comments and subscribing. Like genuinely, it just means a lot to me, so thank you all so much. And if you're a new subscriber to the channel, I want to say that you're very appreciated and welcome to the Coven.